Duncan Hames.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I rise today to make a plea to the Department of Transport to rescue my constituents from their plight. I'm not referring, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to the temporary difficulties caused by unexpectedly seasonal weather, but the long suffering of my constituents on overcrowded First Great Western services in some parts of my constituency and facing woefully absent services in others. But before I do, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'd like to briefly raise the urgent matter of the forthcoming closure of Chippenham Driving Test Centre for refurbishment. The Road Safety Minister has previously heard my calls for Wiltshire residents not to have to travel so far for a driving test, a difficulty many have experienced since the closure under the last government of the Trowbridge Driving Test Centre.
Disgraceful.
However, should plans to temporarily close the Chippenham Driving Test Centre proceed in February, learner drivers in Wiltshire will have to travel as far as Bristol, Swindon or Salisbury. The good news is that the former driving test centre premises in Trowbridge are still available, and I'd urge the Minister to request the Driving Standards Agency consider, instead of closing the Chippenham Centre, moving the driving test centre to Trowbridge during the period of these works. I'm always happy, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to offer solutions to the government when I come to it seeking action. And so it is the case for the overcrowded trains to which I referred. In this House just under a month ago, the Secretary of State set out his proposals for future rail investment, including to cascade 650 additional carriages to the network outside London by March 2014. Today I would like to make the case for even just one of those carriages to be assigned to the Trans-Wilts line, which links the 5 largest population centres in Wiltshire. This was a popular and well-used service until the start of the current Great Western franchise in 2006, when the requirement to provide a meaningful Trans-Wilts service was dropped by the previous government.
Disgraceful.
There is currently a serious problem of overcrowding on trains in and out of Bath. And this problem is made worse because passengers cannot travel directly between Trowbridge and Chippenham and are forced to reroute their journeys through Bath. The Cardiff to Portsmouth line in particular suffers from this overcrowding, as I pointed out to the Secretary of State following his statement. I am in no doubt that that line warrants some of these additional carriages. However, I suspect that without the benefit of some local knowledge, his officials could overlook the contribution that a single extra carriage assigned to the Trans-Wilts line would make in alleviating this problem, since it provides the direct route that's currently missing in all but the extremes of the day. For example, at Wiltshire there are currently only 2 train services each way a day, scheduled at deeply unhelpful times for commuters. A worker from Wiltshire wishing to use these services to travel to work in Swindon would be obliged to work a 12-hour day before even counting their travel time. This is, to say the least, impractical. A single extra 153 class carriage would make possible 4 extra return services per day between Swindon and Salisbury. In due course, with a second 153 car, a regular and reliable hourly service throughout the day would be possible, and at the same time, this will relieve pressure on overcrowded trains through Bath. In the debate which followed the Secretary of State's announcement on 25th November, he assured me that decisions to allocate these carriages will not be determined by the commercial position of franchisees, but by the wider economic benefits extra capacity can bring. The Trans-Wilts line can pass that test. For a start, there are no infrastructure constraints to expanding this service. No new track to lay, no platforms or buildings to construct. There is passenger demand for the Trans-Wilts service. Figures show 10% growth in passenger numbers in West Wiltshire each year since 2005. The Trans-Wilts service operated by Wessex Trains between 2001 and 2006 experienced strong year-on-year growth in passenger numbers. And over 500,000 people live in the Crescent between Swindon and Salisbury, which is served by this line. Indeed, the Wessex Chamber of Commerce and other local businesses have added their strong support for a service at economically meaningful times, connecting the county's population centres. The service would indeed support the footprint of the local enterprise partnership, planned for Swindon, Wiltshire and Gloucestershire. Wiltshire Council itself has plans to temporarily move offices close to Melksham Station next year, which will provide an additional boost to demand while the service establishes itself. This is a strong economic case, and I really must pay tribute to the Trans-Wilts Community Rail Partnership, who continue to coordinate the campaign for better rail services in our area. Improving the Trans-Wilts line is not a costly or high-risk proposition. This is simply a bid to regain a service which was popular and well used, and which should never have been removed from the franchise in the first place. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I do not make a habit of writing lengthy or over-optimistic Christmas lists. Some members of this House will in due course receive a shiny high-speed train set for their constituents. But for me and the long-suffering commuters of Wiltshire, 1 or 2 second-hand carriages would grant us our Christmas wish.
Andrew